Hey, I'm Zachary, and I'd like to welcome you to my devlog. This month, I decided to try and finish an existing project that I had shelved for a bit. I started this project back when I didn't have a lot of free time for game development, so I'm happy I'll be able to give it the attention it needs. I had been doing some searching for a new engine to work with because I had felt like the tools I was using were too frustrating. I already knew how to use Unity. It was actually the first real game engine I tried, and it's how I learned how to program. Well, actually that's not true. I first started with ActionScript 3, and I tried to make Flash games back when I was into animation. Going through some old files, I actually found something that still works. It was like an old top-down Zelda game, but in space. Well, actually again, my first experience with programming may have been in Little Big Planet 2, where I made a pixel art platformer. You can see a video of this on my old YouTube channel from 10 years ago, of which I forgot the password to. There's also some of my first ever uploaded animations on here. Anyways, my main engine of choice used to be the Unity engine. I actually still like using it for 3D projects, but I find 2D pixel art game development to be pretty frustrating. If you try to make something with pixel art, it's going to take a lot of extra setup. Another problem I have with it is that it's proprietary. I prefer to work with open source stuff. Anyways, so one of the first alternatives I tried was GameMaker Studio 2. And I know GameMaker is also a proprietary engine, but this was a while ago, and I didn't really care that much. Besides, I'm also a huge fan of Undertale, and I thought it would be pretty cool to learn the engine that was used to make it. So after using it a little bit, my overall sentiment with GameMaker was that it's pretty good, especially for smaller to medium-sized games. Although I did have some problems with it. My biggest grievance with it at the time was the lack of support for external code editors. I'm really attached to my current code editor, VS Code. It's open source and it has lots of productivity features that let me zip around my workspace. But GameMaker has a built-in script editor that lacks a lot of these things. Also, at the time, the company that works on GameMaker was owned by a gambling company. I wasn't really into that. But that was then. Right now, they are owned by Opera, who makes the Opera internet browser. Which is an improvement, but it's still all closed source, and I don't really want to deal with the baggage that comes with that when there are open alternatives. I also tried Pico 8. This one was mostly just for fun though, since Pico 8 is hyper-focused on making teensy tiny games, and that's not really my ultimate goal. Just really wanted to make a cute little game. Using this engine, I was actually able to finish a project for the first time. Pico 8 is really great and all, but I still needed to find a main toolset I can use to make larger projects. So, the last engine I tried is Godot. Godot is an open source project, so as you already know, I'm very biased towards this engine. But to be honest, my experience with it was a little disappointing on account for the bugs and the clumsy user experience. Don't get me wrong though, Godot in the grand scheme of things is still a pretty young project, so things like this are to be expected. And with the new version of 4.0 coming up, I'm really excited to give it another shot. So after trying so many engines, I finally decided that I would just try to make my own engine. I found Monogame, which is a framework that you can use to build your engine on top of. It handles all the boring stuff like pulling up screen and handling user input and stuff. I think I fell in love with Monogame the second I figured out that all you had to do to draw something to the screen was to write a few lines of code. So since I'm making my own engine, I really just need to add the tools I need and nothing else. And after trying so many different engines, I have plenty of inspiration and things to copy from. For the super basic structure, I copied Unity's take on the entity component system. This is the way one would define the behavior of all the different things put into the game. That took some work, but once that was down, I set up my own tile editor. It's cute and does exactly and only what I need it to do. It actually took a long time to get these things put together, but that's really all there is to it. With a base structure entity component system, I can define objects that do things, and with my tile editor, I can place those things on a grid. So now I have an engine. Now what? To test my tools, I have to actually use them to make something. My little notebook is full of ideas. There's one that's an RPG about one of my favorite economic systems, another one about an online battle royale game. I don't know what that one is. And here's my profile picture. I eventually just decided to do a platformer. I figured that would be the simplest. So the first thing a platformer needs is a moveset. I started out with the basic stuff, like running and jumping around, but now it needs that extra stuff. I wanted to give him arms so he could pick up and throw things, but I just couldn't figure out how to add arms to the sprite with it still looking good. So I just gave up on that. Since he doesn't have arms, that limits him a little bit. I eventually gave him the ability to spit, mostly because I thought it would be funny. He can also leap to dodge harm, like in Dark Souls. The difference here is that after you leap, you kind of splat on the ground for a bit, and you have to jump to get up. While you're in this splat state, you can kind of crawl around, and it's not very useful. So that's good enough for a moveset. After all, I'm just kind of trying to finish something here. That is about how far I got while I was working on this as my side project. After a good break, I will be returning to this project as a full-time effort. So after a month of taking a break from programming, to start, I have a basic engine and a basic idea. But it's been a while, so I kind of have to figure out how any of this stuff works. As practice, I decided to make a little drawing of like a fat dog or something, and I put them in the game. All they do is jump around randomly, but it's also pretty funny to me, so I'll try to find a place for them in the project. For the theme, I decided on like a snowy theme for this starting area. Next thing I did was I mapped out this area to teach the player how to play the game. I tried to make this funny with these gravestones that have descriptions of how to play. The next thing I thought the game needed were some adversaries, so I made some evil snowflakes, evil snowballs, evil icicles, and my favorite, the evil rocket icicle. Next, I added a little encampment where you can meet some new friends. You can see the fat dog from earlier hanging out. There's a lot of fun little guys sprinkled about, and they're all my favorite. And I think that's all I want to go over for this video. If you want to see the other things I left out of the video, you can play the game yourself at the link in the description for free. I'm still pretty new to this, so let me know what parts of the video you liked, what you didn't like, and I'll use that info to make even better videos. And thanks for watching. Bye-bye!